Tiruvona Asham Sagal to all our viewers out there, or a happy Onam. If you're a Malayali, we hope you enjoyed the Onam Sadhya and you enjoyed it if you're not as well. You're with Newsbreak at 7. I'm Vida Raghav. Our top focus this evening, the big NDTV exclusive with External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, in which he spoke out on a wide range of issues. Several news points coming out of that interview there. He expressed confidence of a joint statement from the G20 declared as absurd China putting out of a map including India's territories. He spoke of the need for reforms at the UNSC, categorically stated that abrogation of Article 370 was one of the biggest achievements of this government. Dr. Jaishankar was in conversation with NDTV's editor-in-chief Sanjay Pugalia in New Delhi as part of the Decoding G20 series. The conversation was before a live audience of serving and former diplomats, foreign policy experts and business leaders. Let's listen in to some of the experts from that conversation before we go ahead and discuss the import of it.
Those who are global south know inside that they are global south.
China.
Let me repeat. Those who are really global south know really inside that they are global south. Why do they know? Because at the end of the day, global south is partly a reflection of development, obviously a reflection of income, a reflection of history, what happened to them 100 years ago, 200 years ago. But at the end of the day, global south is a place in the heart. You have to behave like global south to be part of global south. So people will judge. Anybody can say we are global south. Question is, do you behave like global south? And by global south, to me, global south is a country which is in the middle of its the vaccine program, that while we are vaccinating our own people, we are willing to share with others. We are a global south are those who, whatever their limited resources, they will do things for other countries because there is that feeling today that we are part of a family, that your problems are my problems. So I would say global south to me is partly income, partly mindset, partly heart, partly performance on the ground. So if you look today at India, people do say, I have been to other countries where what we did during COVID has, even today people remember it. Not governments remember it. People on the street remember it. True. That I've been to parts of Latin America where I've been stopped on the street by people who cannot, with whom even language is not common, but who will indicate in some form that they care at that time they were with us. So to me, the issue, the challenge is this. Global south is also, there is a sense of solidarity and a conviction which will make you do it in an emergency. So who shares even limited resources is a very important thing. China has even in the past put out maps which claim the territories which are not China's, which belong to other countries. This is an old habit of theirs. It is not something which is new. It started in the 1950s. So just by putting out a map claiming territories, some of which are part of India, I think doesn't make that. These are very much part of India. So I would say, but I would not relate the two countries. I think we are very clear. We are very clear what our territories are. This government is very clear about what we need to defend our territories. You can already see that on our borders. I think there should be no doubt about that. Just making absurd claims doesn't make other people's territory yours. Let's be very clear on that. एक तो जो आपने कहा कि आजकल अगर पाकिस्तान की बात जो है कम हो रही है तो इसको मैं क्या कहूँ, एक किस्म से यू कैन से इट इज़ अ वर्डिक्ट ऑफ द मार्केट. आई मीन लूजिंग स्टॉक में कौन बात करता है. I saw how the rest of the world used this issue to pressurize us, to damage us, to tighten us when they wanted. And I would say, certainly in these 5 years, if people ask me list some key achievements, I certainly would put how we countered COVID as one of the key achievements. But I would say the article, what we did with Article 370, I would definitely put it because I think it has long-term, benefits. And the rest of the world, today when I go around the world, I mean, everybody sort of accepts it.
Lots of news points to discuss there, from China to Pakistan to that paradigm on global south, as well as his confidence on G20. Joining us now is a special panel of foreign policy experts, Dr. Zakir Hussain, Dr. Asif Iqbal, and we'll also be joined in a bit by Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. I know there is lots to discuss, and let me put my first question across to you, Dr. Zakir Hussain. I think the UNSC is also an interesting aspect of that conversation to discuss. Just deconstruct for us what you think of the External Affairs Minister's confidence that there would be a joint communique after the G20 meeting of leaders here.
This is because what he said that before a couple of days back, Prime Minister consulted 125 countries, which was exceptional, which was not common, and that gave confidence to India that world is with us. And whatever joint communique is coming, it is being supported by the world. This is one of the best achievement of G20 summit organized by India. This is basic one. Second, that those who talked about global south, they represent the global south, and within their limited resources, how they are taking the concerns of global south represent global south. These two issues are showing that full of confidence that this time, unlike Bali, this time a joint communication will be issued, and China has already showed its face by giving a tempered map that already India has opposed, and the world is watching China, how it is behaving. So I feel that this will be a remarkable success, and India has developed a confidence in its foreign policy, right from the Ukraine to BRICS, how the member countries which India favored to be there and not to be there, they are included there, and this shows the confidence of our foreign policy. And right now in this conclave, our foreign minister said that China has a habit of showing all these things. So I feel that India will take a very firm stand to declare, to issue a joint communique. Either some countries oppose it or not, because we have our own space. Neither we are China plus, nor we are Western backed. We are an emerging leading power, on which our foreign minister agreed on. So I feel that these are the confidence which gives India and our foreign policy to say that joint communique will be there. And it is also very good to give an early warning, not warning, but early suggestion that India is not going to change or stop or postpone joint communique. It will be there. So countries coming to the country, to India, should be mentally prepared.
All right, that's an important point that you make there. Dr. Asif Iqbal, as we wait for Ambassador Prabhu Dayal to join, I want to raise the question on UNSC and reforms needed for it to become more credible. There's been much conversation in this aspect as well. What do you make of the External Affairs Minister's comments on that?
Thank you so much. if you look at the foreign ministers, joint communique on the UNSC, India's first has always been the first to respond to conflict situations. And if you also see how we stood up during the pharmacy of the world during the COVID, it was something very important for us to understand, that the Security Council resolutions have always been respected and at the same time amplified, wanting to understand the global opinion of any kind of a resolution. Now, there was a large number of issues, where there is agreements are there with the UNSC, whether it's multilateralism, food and energy security, climate change, gender issues, global health, terrorism. So always there is a considerable, a combination of various such factors. And the collective statement that comes from the UNSC has always been a divergence. So therefore, even having the differences on a global, topic like Ukraine, we are all able to reach consensus on the UNSC. And how the UNSC also condemned, all the G20 countries have condemned terrorism in all its forms. And they've also discussed counter narcotics for the first time. And in the G20 to have all those elements, it is very important that how the global governance has been failing and how the countries in the global south were the worst hit. And India taking a positioning for that to focus on what divides us but not what unites us is a very important statement that the foreign minister has made. And how the cost of fuel, food, fertilizer, make and break issues have all been, a part of the UNSC's resolution.
That's important that you make there, and also the definition of that global south, where he says, in your hearts if you're global south, which is to share concerns and share across the board. Sort of talking, sort of setting that tone for that re-globalization that we're talking about. It's not about one country leading the way, it's about a joint effort, because whether it's climate change or not is a global problem. All of us need to deal with it together. Dr. Zakir Hussain?
Yeah, that is very clear that India is focusing on multilateral world order, and at the same time, it is not going to jeopardize the interests of other countries. Whatever we have said that about UNSC reform, we said that it is tough, but don't be pessimistic. It shows that India is not in a hurry, but India is also not going to leave its position. And for the first time in BRICS, 3 countries are being given reference about UNSC reform, that India, Brazil and South Africa. So India is not going alone like China and other countries which wants to a China-centric, Sino-centric or US-centric world, but a consensus of global countries. And I want to stress on the point that the meeting with 125 representatives of 125 countries is a very unique and very conciliatory approach to include the world, and this has changed the G20 nature and its scale. And in the coming meeting, no country can, what foreign minister said, that no country can ignore this. This is the strength of India, and this is the quality of India's foreign policy, which gives independence.
Dr. Zakir Hussain, I believe we can now go across to Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Thank you, sir, for joining us. We were discussing the import and the important points from that interview of the External Affairs Minister, starting with the UNSC reforms as well as his comments on China. What would be your big takeaway, sir?
Well, firstly, thanks for having me in your discussion. I would like to emphasize that the External Affairs Minister was able to very correctly and very emphatically project India's policy towards the G20 presidency. Significantly, what he pointed out was the importance which India attaches to the needs of the global south. Now, here I would like to point out that the motto of India's presidency is one earth, one family, one future. And this is very significant, as the minister pointed out, at a time when the world is facing more and more serious challenges every year. He referred to the COVID pandemic, and it had a devastating effect on the world, including on the global economy. In fact, the countries of the global south have not yet recovered from the effects of the COVID pandemic. But then, as the minister pointed out, the Russia-Ukraine war has adversely affected not just Europe, but also the rest of the world, and in particular, the developing countries. And he mentioned very rightly that the Russia-Ukraine war has created a global energy crisis as well as a global food crisis. There are other problems which he outlined, like such as climate change, which he said is a major problem and which is having devastating effects around the world. So India's policy has been to try and get the world together. And in fact, I would like to emphasize that India has been practicing what it has been telling others. For instance, during the COVID pandemic, India pursued the policy of the vaccine mandate. Then earlier this year, there was this massive earthquake in Turkey and Syria, and India launched Operation Dose to give assistance to Turkey and Syria, although Turkey's policy is not very friendly in many respects.
Several of those points, Ambassador Dayal, were underlined by the External Affairs Minister in that conversation there. I just want to quickly, we're running out of time, I just want to quickly ask you, as far as his confidence of a joint communique coming out of the G20, what's your sense of that?
Well, one can't really say. You know, there are deep divisions within the G20. In fact, that's a very big challenge which we are facing. And it will depend on how India is able to persuade both sides to come to a meeting ground. You know, the Western Bloc would try to get very, very direct references to the Russia-Ukraine war. And then there would be countries like Russia and China which would be opposing. So it may become difficult to hammer out a consensus. And we could have a problem in that regard.
All right. Thank you for those thoughts there. All three of you, we're running completely short of time. But remember, we'll keep the conversation and that interview playing here on NDTV. Remember, the entire interview will be played between 8 and 10 p.m. this evening as well. And we'll continue these conversations in a coming days. Several discussions sparked off from that exhaustive interview with the External Affairs Minister given to NDTV.